Committee March meeting. We have a bit of a lengthy agenda, so I'll get right to it. So sorry the agenda actually came out very late. I'm still waiting. I still haven't gotten 2 pieces of legislation I needed, the Alice and Phoebe Carey Day legislation for the student government. And I also have not gotten the renters registration legislation that is to be amended from a previously passed piece of legislation. So I obviously cannot, I'm not a lawyer, so I couldn't write a updated piece of legislation for the renters registration legislation. But I am techie, so I went ahead onto an AI writing system called ChatGPT and put in my prompt for the Alice and Phoebe Carey Day legislation, and that is what this sheet is. It hasn't been looked up by a lawyer. I'm still waiting for Bill to send me his piece of legislation, but I don't want to, since this is going to be my last City Community Development Recreation Committee meeting, I don't want to leave you guys with nothing. So I tried my best. Not a lawyer. I did not write this.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this, did you want a resolution? Because this is more in the format of like a proclamation with the whereas as well. I guess it could be in a resolution as well.
Like I said, I'm not a lawyer.
I understand that.
I don't know what I want. I really wanted a lawyer to write it, is what I really wanted, but I did not get my wish after asking for over, 3 months it's been now, so I just really hope that he sends us his copy, and if not, at least updates this one to be legally sound. But that's all I have. I'm really sorry. I really tried. I've been a hound dog, but I'm sorry to leave you guys with work. I was hoping to tie those knots before I left, so I'm sorry. All right, well, since we can't do much, I'll pass it on to you, Ms. Clear. You take it away.
Okay, well, you all have in front of you my novel for this month, which I will not bore everyone with reading. Most of the updates, there are some substantial updates. We've been trying to work on park inspections and getting all of that documented. Most of it fell within what I expected to have in terms of deferred maintenance and updates that need to happen at these parks, which was a substantial portion of the budget that I requested, had to do with getting the parks up to par. So that is, most of what you see there is included in the budget. There are a few items that are not. For example, in the Stapleton Park, the Jungle Gym, I found actually Lakeisha, Miss Sager found a folder from 1998 when that equipment was under construction. 1998, so it is actually in really good shape for being almost 30 years old. However, there is one set of steps that has deteriorated to a point where it needs to be taken down and either replaced or that whole section just blocked off, and we're looking at options for that. That was not included in my budget. The other general park maintenance, I'll get to Dumley here in a minute, but the general park maintenance, there are some missing play features at Veterans Park that need to be replaced. I did request that in my budget. I knew the swings were in bad shape at Stapleton. Those are also in my budget. So a lot of these items probably have not historically been in the recreation budget, but they are for this year, and I'm going to go ahead and get that taken care of. Also for Stapleton and Veterans, the mulch is very low, to a point where some of the play features are a good 18 to 24 inches off the ground where they shouldn't be. They should be closer to 8 to 10 inches off the ground. So Braden measured, Mr. Reuter with Public Works measured, and we're going to get some mulch in and get those parks mulch filled to the proper level. That is also in my budget for this year, so there shouldn't be any additional appropriations needed for any of those maintenance needs for those parks. The other project that I wanted to bring to your attention, and it is not on anyone's radar screen, but Veterans Park is currently not accessible for individuals who have mobility disabilities. There are only 2 sets of steps that lead down to the main patio area. So trying to just plan ahead potentially for next year, or if a grant opportunity presents itself, I did ask JMA to come out and do an assessment. The possibility we could, on the north slope, and I can't remember, that's not the Sterling side, I think it's the Sundale side, the north slope of that park where it's more gradual. It's over, the flag and the bushes are here in this corner. This is the north slope.
Okay.
All right, so it's that side. If you're facing that corner of the park, it's to your left. And that slope is gradual enough that we believe we can get a 5% grade, which would mean we wouldn't be required to have railings or anything like that, because it would be as gradual of a grade that we wouldn't need to pay for. But even still, that project is in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $40,000. So that will be, if that is a wish list item. That is not anything that needs to be taken care of immediately now, but I'm just presenting that now, just as something that is going to be on my radar screen potentially for the summer of 2024, potentially requesting funding for something like that, or if I can find a grant, I'll go ahead and kick off that effort to get that park accessible. The other, let's see here, Wise Park, the path has been worked on. The people who regraded the path brought it up a good 4 inches. It still puddles a little bit. But the concern was if they raised it any more, it would affect puddling elsewhere in the park. So instead of going in that direction, it would go back toward the boulder because the grade would be higher than, the back of the park. So they didn't want to do that. But it does drain off a lot more quickly than it used to. So it does still puddle a little bit, but it doesn't stay, so it does drain off. So hopefully that is good enough for now as far as that park is concerned. The other thing I have, I'm on social media a lot, and I know social media is hit or miss with feedback, but, people like the fence. I think they wish the fence was prettier. So I did put in my report that maybe we can do something maybe with some hanging plants or things like that to go on, or maybe a native vine that isn't going to take over the whole park. That would be pretty. That could perhaps flower, that could be trained along that fence line in future years to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing.
May I?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be contradictory to the purpose of the fence, is that we cut all those things down so it would be more visible in there, because we were having people that kind of stayed in there? Wouldn't that be in contrast to that problem?
I think it would depend on what we did. If we did like one little hanging pot on each section, I don't
Right.
think that would obscure anything.
Yeah, the hanging pot,
Yeah.
I can envision that, but the vine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just, again,
Might
I'm
not
just.
work.
Yeah. So it's just some ideas, just to kind of, soften it a little bit, I think. Still keeping the idea of the fence with some flowers.
Yeah.
Let's see. At least as far as our other parks, I did meet with Mr. Blaylock about Shaper, and you can read about that in the report. So let's get on to Dumley, shall we? Okay, so hopefully you have in front of you draft legislation, which is routine for us. We do this kind of thing all the time, authorizing the city administrator to enter into not to enter into, but to request bids, quotes for the construction of the splash pad at Dumley Park. Did you not receive that?
No, we did. You guys received it digitally. I just did not print it out, but I will print it out right now.
You don't have to.
We already have, that's what she was pinning at when she said she ran out of black ink.
No,
That's not the
This.
resolution.
There's a piece.
There's an actual draft resolution.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a legislation. So I
So,
will print that out for everybody.
What I had done in early
Don't.
February is I had given both, I had looked through our previous legislation because we've done this before, and I just ripped off the language that we've done before and sent it to Mr. Dieters to look at, and he finally did have the time in his schedule to look at it and approved it on March 1st, My original intent was to have this in front of council in February. So, 3 public readings for just going out to bid, and then we go out to bid, and then we have to accept a contract, and then there's 3 more public readings. So you do the math. You should have both of those legislation, at least the draft, the framework in front of you for both request for bids and also once we have selected a contractor, the resolution to enter into the agreement with the contractor. Both of those have been reviewed by legal, so they're ready to go whenever we are. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. I have received some updates from JMA as far as
Can I hold you
oh,
there for a
sorry, go
second?
ahead.
I'm trying to, we just got this, so I'm just trying to read real quick. What are the bids to do? Like, what work are you looking to get done specifically?
This is specifically for the construction of the splash pad itself. The
So,
actual,
The plumbing, the pad, the fountain, or whatever?
yes.
The
yes.
sprinklers, whatever,
Yep.
all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, when this is complete, the splash pad itself should be complete? Like, all the fence, all the, like,
Well, the fence, yeah, the rest of the fence is going in now. That was part of the previous phase.
okay. Is this part of, is the bathroom anywhere in this
Nope.
part?
It is not. And it has not been in scope for this for a while. In fact, what we have our head around as far as our perceived dollar figure of what even just this construction phase is going to cost, just due to the increase, it's been a year, since we originally got those numbers, and that is not going to be sufficient. So I'm just telling you, just forewarning and getting your, if we want to do a splash pad for only, what was it, 150,000, it's not going to be remotely close to what I think any of us are envisioning. It's going to be a couple of overhead features and some ground sprays, and that's it for 150K, just given today's pricing with everything that's going on. So if we want something that I think approaches the scope and the design of what we all had in our heads, where there's several overhead things, there's things for the kids to play with, it's going to be significantly more, I think, than that price range. But we'll have to see what the bids come out to be.
So have the previous bids expired? Is that why we're doing this again? Yes.
I did not have a bid in hand. What I had from JMA was an estimate, like a ballpark estimate from one vendor. I think it was from May or June of last year, but that was not a bid. That was mostly just to say, hey, just as a rough estimate, here's how much this kind of a project would cost.
So again, I don't want you to feel like that I'm coming down on you, but there is just this monument, that one, confusion in my head that says, we were told this park was going to open last August.
Right, and I really,
hang on,
honestly,
hang
I
on.
don't want to
So-
go down that rabbit hole again. I really don't.
Well, if I find it confusing that we don't even have bids if it was supposed to open last August. That's where my
Cannot
confusion
speak
is.
to that. What I would like to do is at least get this in front of you guys today and potentially get it onto the council meeting Monday for consideration for the first reading, and then we can move on, and we can get this project going. That's where my head's at. I can't speak to, I looked through all of our resolutions from last year, the year before. I did not see anything that said we're going out to bid for a splash pad. I didn't see anything to that effect.
Unfortunately, we were told that, so I can understand
Yeah.
why there's no
Piece of legislation.
trail for it.
Ms. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a visual of what this $150,000 could possibly look like? Because I'm thinking like somebody holding a water hose.
We did have one.
Yeah, we had
you-
a whole
you-
mock-up.
We had one from last year. I do not have it in this folder. I have it in my
Since
office.
things have kind of changed, I'm imagining
Exactly.
that it's not going to look like that anymore. It's going to,
So, like Ms. Clear stated, the pricing has changed.
Right.
Actually, JMA is the one who would go out to get the bids for us and bring those back. So it has changed tremendously. We met a few times and we looked over what we thought we wanted. Even when I met with Ms. Mimi Anderson before, the ideas that we had pulled out for the facility and the amount of space, because we had to shift You had to move. So before the bid could go out, we had to have multiple conversations about this turtle is too big. This zebra, this is too big. So we had to take some of those things out from the initial drawing. And then I believe Ms. Clear had another meeting, was it a month or so ago, where they said, this needs to move this way. It can't sit where you thought it was supposed to sit. So now you can have this, that. So if we had 15 items, it's probably down to 8 or 10. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, could we possibly,
So the bid, so everything kept changing and shifting. The first phase was the parking lot. I believe that was the 130. And so since a lot of things shifted, so now we can say, go out to bid to get the companies that'll say, this is what we'll do it for, with what you can fit in this property. So when they did the line, the electrical and the plumbing, that changes some things. Then when they did the parking lot, that changed some things.
So, sorry, because I just don't, I think we all understand why it had to change and why it had to get pushed back. I think what I feel, and I think this is what Ms. Orb was trying to say, we should have never been promised that this was going to go up on that date without all of those things being checked first.
And it was.
I'm not done, I'm sorry. It's just frustrating that we are still at this again where, you know, Ms. Clear's putting in all this work that should have been done way before we were ever promised this opening date. So we just hope that from this point on and from with other projects in the future, that doesn't happen again where we're getting a false date.
We said we anticipated that it would open in August. We didn't say definitely that it would open in August, because you have to consider that we had a piece of legislation that went into a committee and stayed there for a moment, and we couldn't even do the work on the street.
hadn't had that
And
piece of
things
legislation.
changed within, I'm sorry?
We hadn't had that piece of legislation yet.
You did have it for the parking lot.
Not
It
my-
was in Ms. Duke's Dean.
budget?
Yes, because we couldn't do the parking lot without council approving the legislation.
Her budget, you mean in her committee?
Right.
Yeah, Budget and Finance Committee.
I mean,
So as I was saying, we can always say an anticipated date of when we wanted something to open, not the anticipated date was, yes, we wanted August.
I
But
mean, I
as
could
we
say
look,
an anticipated date of tomorrow.
I could say yesterday as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it says isn't true.
So
I
as
just
you- like
hope
you-
that we from now on are giving like the public. I mean, people listen to this meeting, so I hope that we give them more accurate descriptions of what's going to happen with the government, especially a splash pad. People are sad that you know, look at all these things that Ms. Clear is putting amazing effort into fixing our parks. Look at all these things that need to be done. So I'm sure that people are really looking forward to this splash pad, and I'm sure they don't want to be let down by, you know, anticipated dates that are falling through. So I just hope that from now on, I mean, I appreciate this piece of legislation. From now on, I hope that we can give more accurate dates. I understand things are changed. We're frustrated about that. We're allowed to be frustrated about that. And we're going to move on from it. And we're going to move through our frustration and continue with Dumley Park. But I hope as a member of this committee, as a member of council, and as a citizen in North College Hill, that we are being more accurate with our statements.
But I
Chair.
do hope that you understand that sometimes dates do change. I do
Oh,
think that
yeah,
you
for
realize
sure.
that. And so sometimes everything isn't just set in stone. There's a process to everything. Whether we say this is a date that we anticipate, things change, prices change, for whatever the reason. The entire reason was not just that we said this is the particular date. There were other things that were involved as to why it did not happen. Not necessarily from here nor from there. We're not the only ones involved in it. When
No,
you're
I'm not
depending
saying
on
you are.
other people to do things and the process, sometimes the process changes.
And we totally understand that. I mean, look at how I opened this meeting. I said, hey, over 3 months ago, I asked for 2 pieces of legislation. It's 3 months later, and I still haven't gotten them. I completely understand. Things change. You hope for things to happen, and they don't. I get it. I just don't want to continue to argue about something that a previous city administrator had said and had promised us that fell through. I just don't. I mean, we're allowed to be frustrated with false promises. The people of North College Hill are allowed to be frustrated. really need excuses because we're already kind of moved on and stuff. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying this person is the fault or this person is. We're frustrated. I think we're allowed to be frustrated and heard. And then I think we want to kind of move on because we do have other things to go on
Likewise.
here.
Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to tack on a little bit. I'd like to end up on a positive note
Yeah,
on this.
thank you.
Because you're right. We have different people now that are
Yeah.
helping us. And Ms. Clear has done a remarkable job.
Yes,
So I feel very confident that this is going to come to fruition.
I agree.
But I just don't think that we can actually timestamp
No.
when it's going to.
And I don't think we should.
Some things may still be on a ship in the ocean 2 years from now.
Yep.
We don't know.
Then we should find a different vendor, but yes.
Yeah.
But thank you.
No, I agree. Okay, so are we okay to send this, excuse me, this piece of legislation to council? The only thing I have is, normally it says like a watermark somewhere, like this was approved or written, you know, this piece of legislation was approved by the law offices of Bill Dieters.
Yeah, she said she sent it to him.
Sent it to him.
She
But
sent
did he
this
put
to
that-
him.
But did he didn't put that on there. I was
There's
just-
no stamp. I wasn't sure if there was a process for that, but his administrative person, I think her name is Miss Billow,
Right.
because I was calling her twice a week for 3 weeks.
Yeah. All she has
And
to do is add
she-
that line on,
Yeah.
it's just a
Okay.
one
just to
line.
like assure that this is.
Yeah, he said I was missing, the first draft, I was missing the certification piece at the end, and he said
Okay.
just add that and it should be fine. So I did that. So I will see if he can get that stamped to you guys.
That'd be great.
Will that hold up the first reading?
I think so.
Yes,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Also, in the caucus room, we have a stamp that Ms. Nichols and I have used when we were clerks. I've got it, it's been updated since I was the clerk, but that is insignificant, because if he still hasn't seen it, why are we
Right.
stamping it?
Right.
Right. I do have a document trail that says he has seen it. Would that be helpful? I do have an email trail that says, yes, he's seen it, and it's fine as long as ABC.
I think so.
I think it would be
But hang on,
beneficial
hang
if
on.
we keep
That
it
helps
attached.
us.
on
Yeah,
the
that helps
copy.
us, but I
But
mean,
that
for
doesn't
the
help
anyone in
actual
the
passing
future.
of this, we'll need it on there, like she said, for the future. That way, when people look back at this,
Right.
they know, hey, this was approved by our law director.
And this is my first go-around with presenting legislation, so
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
learning as I go. So,
No, you're
yeah,
good.
I
That's
will
why we were
definitely make
asking for
sure,
it.
in the future that we have an official stamp.
It's
Is
just
that
his
gonna,
verbiage.
Yep.
okay,
It'd be so significant if we kept it with the legislation.
Right.
Rather than have to go back and look at something else.
Mhm.
Or
Okay.
attach something to it.
Yeah.
okay. Well, I will attempt to rectify that between now and Monday's meeting
Thank you.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Actually, it has to
I
be
will
to the
attempt.
clerk by Thursday.
by Thursday, yeah. Okay. But also on another note, I'm making a commitment. This was not an easy update to give you today about this park. Where timeline is at risk and budget is at risk. Those are hard things to tell, your decision makers. So I do commit, that if there is anything that is going to impact anything, I will notify you through the appropriate channels as soon as I find out about it, which is what I did in this report this month. So
Thank you.
hopefully that helps.
Yes. Yeah.
So anything else about the park at this stage? Okay.
I have one.
Okay.
I think at one time we had asked for like a total picture of
Yes.
what the anticipated costs were. Did we ever get that? Did I miss it?
I have not received that. I know that they were working really hard on trying very hard to get this piece of it in our budget frame, and it's just not going to happen. So they've been spending their energy on that, but I will reach out to them and see if they can give us the, full scope or at least some advice as far as how we should scope the rest of this project. Would that be helpful?
Very, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I will try to get that. When is the April meeting? I'll try to have that for you by the April meeting if possible. But I will not have that by Monday, I can tell you.
That's
Yeah.
This is clear.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
want to ask a question, and this is more of a technical question, but I drive by the park every day on the way to work, but we talked about this, and this was back in the summer, about, it is a part of the thing, but a timer, 2 timers, a timer for the water on and off, and then also a timer that would securely lock the gate. I think that would be important. I know we discussed someone taking tickets or whatever, but I still think a timer for the water and a timer for
Most-
the gate, and this is a way off, I know, but just just keeps sticking in my mind.
Well,
Thank you.
I do have good news for you on that front. Most of these systems are what they call smart systems, where we can establish, if we only want this park available from 10 to 6 p.m., we can set it for 10 to 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And in order to conserve water, we can set it so that the sprays only last for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and then they shut off. And if the kids want to keep playing, they have to, hit the little thing and restart it again. Most of the systems are designed that way these days. So, but that is definitely on the requirements list. I don't want to be pouring water down the drain, that the city's paying for.
The gate's locked, don't.
Yeah, and then, I'm not sure about the gate. A motorized gate, I don't know if I had that in my requirements list, but for sure at the end of the season, when they come and winterize the system, that's another thing that has to be in the contract, that they winterize the system, they drain all the pipes, so we're not getting frozen, busted pipes underground that we have to fix. All that, and then, to lock, that area off. It's not going to stop everybody who is determined to get in there, but at least it will, indicate that this area is not open at this point in time.
Another compliment that I have to say is since we ordered, I guess it's been close to a year, the new equipment, it's just tons of kids and parents there. They just love it. One time I saw actually like 6 cars parked there with 15, 20 kids and parents in the park. So the new equipment there is really a hit, and it's good to see that.
Yes, and I will actually give credit where credit is due. I had nothing to do with that. That was the previous administration who made those decisions.
It was the previous.
And the ADA accessible play equipment, is also, I see a lot of kids on that as well. So that was a good decision.
Brings a smile to it when I drive by.
All right, well, thank you. Okay, maybe I missed it. Sorry, I was emailing and texting about legislation. But did you talk about the senior center, or?
We were still on Dumley Splash Pad.
Got it.
We have not talked about senior center.
Got it, okay, sorry, I'll let you keep going.
Are we ready for that? I was just making sure we had gotten everything, because I don't see you guys again for a month, so.
I think so. Does
Okay.
anybody have any more questions about Dumley?
Okay. So with regard to the senior center, I may defer a few of my comments, unless you just want me just to have at it.
We've already talked about it.
Okay.
I've been there, so.
Senior center, it's kind of like a big elephant to discuss. The building is generally in good shape. We had the exterminator come out. There's no sign of like any severe infestation of anything involving more than 2 legs. So that's a good news. They did treat. We've gotten that taken care of. I'm going to be meeting with the cleaners, one of the potential cleaners tomorrow. We've gotten everything in every closet and every drawer and cabinet except for the files, all pulled out, organized, sorted. We know what's there. We know what we need. So that effort has been done to inventory all that. The large equipment, appliances, large equipment, what little was left there has been documented. And Chief Strand took care of getting that on the insurance for the building. The building is now insured. But there are several areas that will need to be remediated before that building can be open. One of the commodes in the restrooms is in need of replacement. We have our fire chief here. There's some concerns with, smoke detectors and fire extinguishers and things like that need to be addressed. Cosmetically, the building needs some paint. The ceiling, evidently the building was used in the past by a baton twirling group, and the evidence of which is pockmarks
there.
all in the ceiling, in the main part of the community center. There's just holes in the ceiling. So, again, those are cosmetic. Is that going to keep that? I don't think those are showstoppers, but they definitely need to be addressed. One of the things that is a showstopper is the condition of the kitchen, and also the bus. The bus that they have now is not in good repair, which is why they had purchased another bus, which has now been given to a different organization. I am actively researching funding for replacement of that bus. There are a couple of options. But the devastating loss to that, and I did meet with the seniors. I met with them in kind of an informal roundtable discussion here. You know, they expressed some of their concerns. They shared some ideas. They shared the activities that they enjoyed. But the bus is a devastating loss. A lot of them do not drive. And the only way they can get to the senior center or to any of these outings or to any of these activities or even to meet with me, somebody would have to drive them. And the loss of that bus is a big deal. So I'm aggressively looking for if there's any kind of grant funding or sponsorship funding that I can find to get us another bus. If you keep it under 14 passengers, you don't need a CDL, which is good. But there are places around, you know, even locally and regionally that do offer, you know, certified pre-owned buses with a wheelchair lift. That's where I'm looking now, just at least to get my head around the cost. From what I've seen, they're in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $40,000 used. New, they can get upwards of $80,000 to $100,000. So it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are hard conversations to say to the people with the checkbook.
Right.
But again, I'm looking for funding. But that is a big deal that they really want that bus back. Other things like the digital bingo board, you know, the TVs, you know, those can be replaced over time or through other avenues. The kitchen pieces, I will have to say that I do have a connection with the chef world in Cincinnati. And she has reached out to her friends to try to see what she can do to get us some resources to help. Now, that would not be free, but that would definitely be, you know, not full retail. So I'm working with her on seeing what we can do to help with that as well. So, and I've started to itemize costs and, you know, what can fit in the levy, what won't. So we're working on that as well.
Thank you. That was a very comprehensive update.
Madam Chair,
Do you have something related to that? Go ahead. And I'll let you go.
what Ms. Clear did not mention as well is that she's actually found a grant that she could apply for that would go towards the senior center. So,
Yeah, it's at the T-Mobile, the hometown grant. Yeah, I think I was going to see if the bus potentially could follow, because that is a substantial grant.
Yeah.
And if that bus would be an eligible expense for that grant, would be great. Then again, you have to apply, and they could say no.
Right.
So there's always that, you know,
right.
but at least, you know, we have some options that we can explore.
Mary Jo.
2 questions. Who would be your bus driver?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know the
Chicken
name
before
of
the
the
egg
person
or
who
the egg
was the bus driver, and I do not know. But I have started to research how much do shuttle bus drivers get paid. You know, these things all cost money, right?
Yeah.
So I have started to look at that, and so we can at least have our heads around that dollar figure as well.
So my other point was, when you go out cross county and you get on to 75 South, there is a auto auction place there.
Okay.
And they constantly have those vans. And if not, my place of employment might be getting rid of any. So let me do some checking. I know we cycle through them.
I know what auction place you're talking about because it's right by that factory.
It is.
And the smell gives me a headache. So I know what
It is, right? Yep.
Immediately. Yeah. Okay, anything else? That was great. Thank you. I just saw at the bottom of your report, it said for the NCH-CIC fundraising, the NCH Law Director has approved the draft, blah, blah, blah. Would you mind expanding further on that?
Sure.
Thank
Thank you. Let me get my header.
So at the very
Very
bottom,
last
at the very
page.
end.
Under
It talks
fund
about
development.
CIC.
So, you know, for a while, I've been trying to get something organized with the CIC with regards to a fundraising partnership of some nature, whether that's a sponsorship or fiscal agent or however that looks. Because there's certain avenues of fundraising that are out of reach for recreation as being a government entity that a 501c3 organization has access to. And we've talked about this since the summer at least. But we've gotten some traction, and we've got a draft memorandum of understanding. Mr. Dieters has reviewed it. He didn't see any concerns, so we are going to, in this Thursday's meeting, talk about that some further. And then also internally, that kind of governs the relationship, but internally you've got procedures like who applies for the grant, where does the money go, who's authorized to write the check, who can ask for the check, those kinds of little nuts and bolts, devils in the details kind of things we still need to work out. But that's what we're working on right now as far as the next step of that process.
That's great. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
No, but I would like to pat Miss Claire on the back.
No, she's just great.
She gets a tremendous amount of work done, and it's much appreciated. And so I hope you're successful in everything you put your little hands on.
Yeah, we're glad to, we're really grateful to have you. I don't think you understand just how grateful we are to have you. You are wonderful, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I'm so sorry to put you on the spot, Ms. Iki, and if you do not have any updates, do not worry at all. This is for the year and a half or so that I've been this committee chair, I've just always had the update from city administrator on the comprehensive plan and economic update. If you have any, great. If you don't, we just kind of move on. So whatever you got, we would love to hear, but.
I do not have an update.
No worries.
However, I am meeting with them tomorrow.
For the comprehensive plan?
Correct.
Gotcha, okay.
So by the time the next meeting rolls around, I should have an update from them.
Perfect.
Along with any materials that they would have to submit to council for your review. So I will keep you posted on that.
I have a very general question. So, under our previous city administrator, he had hired an economic developer consultant. Do we still have that consultant, or?
I believe they are working with the folks doing the comp plan
Okay.
as part of that.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. All right, any questions for Ms. Iki?
Yeah. I am really struggling with my words tonight, forgive me. The economic developer dude, that's,
That's doing things.
yeah. Like, is there any timeline around him?
Like, does he have projects or anything too, I'm wondering?
Is it like a never-ending contract, or is it, what is that?
I
What's that
don't
look
know.
like?
I don't know yet. I still have not seen the contract. Hopefully he'll have a copy of it tomorrow when we meet, along with the folks from Urban Fast Forward. So I can follow up via email after that meeting.
That'd be great.
If you wouldn't mind sending
would
his
not.
contract to us, that would be awesome, because
I will
we've
find
never seen it either.
Okay.
We didn't really know he was hired until after
Right.
it happened. So we were kind of surprised when we found out that we had one. We were like, oh, we have one of those?
And Madam
What are they
Chair-
doing?
Madam
Yeah, go
Chair,
ahead, Ms. Ewing.
Is it possible to find out what he does for the salary that he earns? I mean, does he just, I don't know what he does. I don't think we've seen anything.
Yeah, would that be
from
included
him.
in the contract?
It should be included in a scope of services in the contract.
Okay.
So once we find that, I think I'll be better prepared and able to answer your
All right.
question. So I shall work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Orb, over to you. And I know you have an update on this, so I'm excited.
We do.
Sorry to put you on the spotlight.
Yeah, you're good at that tonight.
No.
Um,
The two things I had on my to-do list got taken away from me, so everybody else is getting to do it.
where is it? So we sent a picture of where we would like to have the tree planted. The order has been placed by the arborists to get it here. They want to plant it in the next couple of weeks,
Yes.
because there is a very small window of time that that tree can be planted. I think we kind of went over this in the council meeting.
Yes.
They do all the calling of the OUPS people before they call before you dig, so they handle it all. They don't have the exact date planned yet, because they don't know exactly when the tree will be ready. But I will let everyone know when that date comes in. And then, once it is planted, we are planning an Arbor Day celebration, where it's kind of like, I don't know, dedicating the tree, if that's a thing. We've asked the mayor to say a few words. We're going to have games and stuff for
That'd be
kids.
fun.
tree coloring. I can't even remember what all we're supposed to do.
Isn't Arbor Day, is that in April?
It is. But
April
it
29th?
doesn't have to be on that day.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be
But I was thinking
a
that's,
celebration.
I mean, I'm sure my mom loves doing this, and I know my mom's on your board, so I'm assuming
is
she's already brought up
All
Madam
over
Chair.
bird
it.
feeders. I'm sure she's already brought those up. Pinecone bird feeders, those are her thing.
Madam
Go
Chair,
ahead.
the event that Ms. Zorb is referring to is actually booked. It's on the city calendar for Saturday, April 29th.
Thank you.
So that is on the calendar.
Man, you were good. Thank you, guys.
Miss Anderson, Mrs. Anderson made sure I was aware of the date and had it on the calendar. So
Oh,
I had
she's
nothing
good
to
at
do with that.
The Anderson does not fall far from the tree, pun intended. All right. So this is, Ms. Iki, this may be new to you, but Ms. Clear, in her wonderful wisdom, suggested that we get a bulletin board for outside of outside of the building, purely for council chambers, or purely for council use to post.
Information.
Yes, for information, for special meetings, minutes, agendas, new pieces of legislation proposed and passed, and all that jazz. And I believe was our previous administrator still here when that had happened?
I made a request for it quite a while ago.
Yeah, it's been in the talks for like a couple, I mean, I remember when I first started in council, it was discussion.
Right.
But I know was I supposed to look into that? I don't think I was.
I think that's what eventually turned into the electronic sign.
Electronic sign, yeah.
It morphed into when we first started talking about it, it was. And then it,
Are you referring to like years or months ago?
years,
Okay.
Yeah, years.
like
Yes.
Amber Bailey years.
Be-
Yep.
If I may, I interrupted, I'm sorry.
Please.
But because the board here was intended for council news, however, that lobby is not technically 100% public forum, so it's difficult for
Correct.
people to come in and be able to read.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so that was the idea of having the bulletin board outside where you could post and you wouldn't have to depend on the building being unlocked. It's whatever procedures you all have, like the clerk of council or the president of council would have a key and be able to post legislation without necessarily needing to be able to get into this building to do so.
Well, and I think it's great too. You had mentioned this as well, but it does look, let's be honest, it looks a little tacky when we, scotch tape it up to the window when we have to post a special media announcement. So, what are the next steps for that? Like, because we already we passed it along to, I'm sorry, I'm now recalling this. We passed it along to Rules and Public Policy to decide the procedure for that, but we had asked, were we going to motion to have them order it, or, I'm sorry, Mr. Mosby was still here when this happened, so I don't totally remember if we had asked him or not. Do we want to ask administration to order one? Okay. Would you like a formal motion? Would you like to what would you like us to do?
So this, just so I'm clear.
Yes.
On what we're talking about.
You're totally
So
fine.
this would be like a board outside,
Yes.
probably in some kind of locked case, so that we
Yes.
could post the documents in there and people could come up and see them.
Yes.
Okay. Did we have an idea of where we would order them from, or do we need to investigate that?
So,
I think
Ms.
that
Clear, I
probably
know
needs
you
to be
had sent me a
investigated.
link. I'm so sorry.
I think that needs to be investigated.
It needs to be investigated. Ms. Clear had sent me a link of a example one that she was saying would possibly might work, and I agreed. I thought it looked great, but that would still need to be investigated. Yes.
Okay.
Of where to order one from.
Because if I'm sorry.
I do. I just picked one off of Amazon that could
Yeah.
support
Okay.
8 pages. That's all I was kind of going for
Yeah.
because you need the
Had
agenda,
a
you need
lock
the
on
minutes, you
it
need the, whatever legislation, usually is 2 to 4 pages long, whatever we look at. So that's kind of just, if it could physically accommodate the papers, really, they're all the same, honestly.
I would
Just
agree.
tamper-proof, locked outdoor
Would
bulletin
it have to
board.
be
Whatever
waterproof?
works
It
best
would
for
be.
you. It would need to be water resistant, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there a preferred location outside? Was that determined, or are you
think-
looking for a recommendation on that as well?
I think last time we talked, we were saying next to the tax letter thingy box out there.
When you're
We're talking
entering the
next
building,
to
that
that.
wall on the left.
On that? Okay.
Well, sorry, are you talking the left when you're looking at the doors? The left.
I said when you're entering the building.
When
the
you're
door-
entering,
the
yes.
wall,
When you're
yeah.
entering the doors on the left. Thank you.
And then that light should shine on it, so that would help.
Yeah.
Oh, and we talked about how wasn't a camera supposed to go there?
I think there is a camera, isn't there?
The intercom camera is there also. It's on the lee side of the wall, so if there's severe weather, it wouldn't get, the wind would be blowing over it, not at it,
Okay.
just from that perspective too, so.
All right. Anything else on that? Okay. I will text Miss Underwood and ask her to take that in, or email her. I'm sorry, email her and ask her to take that into her committee to decide what we want to have in there and whatnot. Anything else? Any old business? Any new business? And we ended early. All right, I'm assuming we will start on time for budget and finance at 7:30, but if not, then we will see you back in a bit. But that's all. Thank you.
We need our clock changed.
I know, it seems like we're really early. Hi, Chief Fells, how are you? Oh, hanging in there. You want to write a piece of legislation for me? You sure? I can't get anybody else to do it. So, do you know what chat?
Her name is Tony Russell, and she's here to talk to us about the property that sits on West Galbraith and Simpson, the little, like, car, it used to be a car place. Okay. So she has some business ideas that she wants to share with us, but I think I had spoken with you all before that there's legislation against it being anything automotive, so she wanted to present her concept to us and see where we were willing to go with that building passed today. So.
Okay. Hello, good evening. First of all, I want to say thank you for having me. My name is Tony Russell, and I am the founder and president of Tune Updo. Tune Updo is a hair salon with an automotive spin on things. We are a family, minority, and female-owned company. While my team of licensed cosmetologists tend to your personal self-care, my son and his team of ASC certified technicians tend to your basic car maintenance routines. We have a diverse team and cater to a wide group of clientele. We are looking to rebuild and diversify the city of North College Hill. Our vision is to rebuild the community by repurposing, reusing, and rehabbing old brick and mortar structures. The vision for Tune Updo is also to benefit families in the community by servicing locals in need of personal maintenance as well as general vehicle maintenance, reaching out to schools and churches in the area to assist with finding residents that cannot otherwise afford said services. We want to wash your hair and not your car, which is why we plan on a partnership with the car detailing place across the street for your car detailing and washing needs. To build that sense of community and togetherness, we plan on talking with local businesses to see how we can help each other grow. Our vision for Tune Updo takes place at 1949 West Galbraith Road. That area is now zoned as B1, which includes beauty parlors, but is not limited to auto servicing. We are a cosmetology-focused salon while also providing in and out automotive servicing. Tune Updo is a part of the Green Salon Collective program, reducing our carbon footprint on the planet, recycling everything in the salon from hair clippings to paper towels. We plan to follow EPA policies and procedures for all automotive supplies and packaging, recycling anything that can be recycled. Paying close attention to watch not only the air pollution, but noise pollution as well. And keeping bay doors closed while vehicles are being maintained. There will be no vehicles left overnight in our lot. When you leave, your car leaves with you. In conclusion, the goal, the purpose, and the vision for Tune Updo is to help North College Hill move forward with their comprehensive plan of making a more diverse, inclusive, small business-owned community, showing that if you follow your dream, one of us can help all of us succeed. I am Tony Russell, and we are Tune Updo.
Thank you.
So from here, we'll continue to kind of, I guess, do you guys have any questions of her?
I have a question. What type of automotive services? Are you talking just strictly like oil changes and light work, or?
Strictly oil changes, tire rotations, topping off your fluids, teaching you how to check your fluids and top off your fluids and your tire pressure and things like that. I really don't want to get into engine overhauls and all that stuff. None of that stuff is fun to me. Actually, I took automotive in high school because I knew this was something I wanted to do someday. And that was many, 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 many moons ago. And I just kept putting it off. And now here I am, not putting it off anymore.
So I have a question. So I 1,000,000% appreciate your line when you said no vehicles overnight.
Yeah.
Because that was part of the eyesore, because you also talked about, fresh air. I mean, that it's not pleasing to the eyes when you see junk cars sitting there
And that's why I
for
don't
4
want to
months
get
on
into all
end.
that other stuff.
Right, right. So, like, how do we know that that's not going to happen? What is our guarantee that things don't change down the road?
No, I don't, like I said, I don't want to do any of those things. So I want to say, think of us as a Jiffy Lube, but to a higher level, a different type of Jiffy Lube. So when you go to Jiffy Lube to get your oil changed, you're not leaving your car there, you're leaving with your car. So we're just doing general maintenance. I know how long it takes to do a hair root touch-up as well as a tire rotation. So everything that I'm doing is planned at the same time. So when you're done, everybody's taking their stuff with them. I drive past that building a lot myself, actually, because I've already manifested it, it's already mine, so you guys can think amongst myself. I've already painted it in my head. I've already demolished and all the things that I need to do. So I don't want anybody's cars there overnight. I don't want to see that. I know what the vision is that I have in plan for that building, and it's not sitting with junk cars out front.
That's magic to our ears.
But I just want to point out, I live close to the Valvoline, and they tend to kind of like, it's a magnet for cars with the for sale sign in them too.
No. Well, that's what tow signs are also for, in tow trucks.
Oh.
Please don't make us tow you. Yes.
Right. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Ms. Russell, I had a question for you.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a question or a comment. So right now, that property has been zoned where you can't put any type of car manufacturers or something like you want to do. Now, you just claimed it in the property. So would you still go through with your idea if our BZA wouldn't switch it back?
You know, I can find a new location. Honestly, I am not changing on my concept. It's
Okay.
just like, I'm already married to it. It's my life. I already have the name. It's my legacy. It's everything that I plan on doing. So if I have to find a new location, I have to find a new location. I'm okay with that.
I just wanted to
Oh.
check because it would have to go through them because the zoning has already been changed. So I just wanted to verify before.
I can find a new location. It's fine. I mean, there's a spot in Hamilton that I was looking at, so we'll just kind of, which I live in Hamilton, so I actually have to drive over here, which is not a problem. I go wherever the universe tells me to go, and if that's my spot, that's my spot. I already said
That's
it
right.
is, so
That's
it's all good.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Anybody else?
What would our next steps be? I mean, it goes through zoning first, right?
Yeah, I guess you guys, we have to talk about it further. I just wanted to kind of let her, she had reached out to me via email, let her kind of present her concept and us deliberate it further.
But I don't know what skin do we have in the game?
We would have to decide on there's legislation out there that says this building can't be anything associative with automotive stuff. So I guess.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that I don't think that's council legislation, that's zoning legislation, correct?
It would go through our zoning board.
Right, so it wouldn't go through council,
I think it goes
If-
through zoning first.
Yes.
And then
and then
if
it comes to
they
council?
want to change it, they send it to us? Is that the order?
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So are you going to go to our zoning board next?
We'll go to wherever I need to go to.
If you can
Oh,
get them
I guess-
together, I'll give you a round of
Have to go
applause.
tonight?
Okay. And I can email you that contact information.
Sounds good.
It's on the website, too.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
do you have her report in your laptop? Would you be able to forward that to council?
Mhm.
Would you be okay with that?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Whoever's hands it needs to get into.
There you go.
Remember the name Tune Up Do?
Yes, I love the name.
I do, too.
Honestly, it came to me in a dream. I was sitting there trying to think of a name, and something woke me up and said, Tune Up Do. And I called my daughter in the middle of the night, and I said, it's Tune Up Do. She said, Mom, that's it. And I said, okay. So, yeah. So when you hear it, you think, Tune Up, Up Do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Tune Up Do. That's our thing. We have kind of a Betty Page pinup look.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hang on. Oh. Yeah, I just went to the car show.
I'm always at car shows.
So we have a North College Hill car show,
Oh, okay.
and we do pinup girls.
I'm a pinup
At-
girl.
Oh, see how it just all came full circle?
So this is Miss Clear. She would love to talk to you about that.
No, I'm in a pinup chapter. We go to different like things for autism and stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
what's up? Pinups with a purpose.
Get out of here. You just got all kinds of stuff going on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
More questions? I feel like the longer I stand up here, someone comes with another question. So stand up here, and eventually I'll just let me have it. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is the NCH charter, and I had to reach out to, I put this on here because there was a item that came through our committee, which was the purchase of the Christmas tree. And so Ms. Zorb made a motion for the Christmas tree, and it passed. But unfortunately, there was a couple issues with it. One was that we can't make a motion when there's a line item. So the legislation, I knew you were going to look at me like that, so I've looked it up and talked to field teachers before I did it. And then the other thing is the, sorry, I'm getting to the legislation.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, wasn't he at the meeting that
He
mentioned
was,
that?
and it went right over his head. I don't know if he was listening, but it should have happened.
Well, I mean, if he's here, he should be listening.
Well, I
as
don't
our
know that he
baseball
wasn't
director.
listening. All I can tell you is that it went over his head. He wasn't sure, actually, when I asked him about it with the motion. Someone said it to me, and then I asked him about it to make sure, and he said that it needed to be a ordinance because we're making an allocation in the budget for that. And so the other thing is it came out of the recreation budget. Ms. Clear has already came to Budget and Finance and gave her her breakdown of her budget. So we really don't want to be calling out line items. We want to leave that for administration to figure out where it comes from. So it wasn't the best idea to grab it from recreation. And then there's that amount of money that we get per capita, per person. It's like in the tune of $19,000 for things specifically like that. So even if it wasn't up to semantics on the charter to say, hey, this is where it should have come from, there was the legislation piece of the ordinance that we needed to do. And then if it wasn't that and we let it fly on that, we still need to reposition where it comes from. So we need to undo that and do that right. And then the other thing about that was there were the follow-ups of where the tree is going to be placed. I think you were following up with the roots to see, because then we talk about the roots where it was planted, as if it was blocking the sign, how far the roots were going to go, being that the tree was like 10 to 15 feet, and then what the contract included. So I know that you also made a motion because it was timely and you needed to get it, he needed to get it planted in a couple of, I think you identified a few weeks. So we need to, I guess, expedite that so that we can get it on the next council meeting's agenda to vote on it, because we have to do it that way. So I was going to show you the legislation, just so there isn't any tussle about it.
I guess I'm confused. Why couldn't it have been done by a motion?
Because it needed to be done by,
Legislation.
I'm asking why, though?
because it's in the charter.
I need to know where in the charter.
So sometimes this hyperlink works. I went to it twice. I was going to forward it to you. And then sometimes it doesn't. So one time I went to it, it worked. The other time it didn't, and I had to like look it up.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Ms. Anderson, I gave you a copy
Yep,
of
you
the,
did.
yeah, do you mind if I flip through that?
Here we are.
Oh,
And I don't think that this, I can't really see it up there. Can you all?
No, not at all.
But for the record, this is the piece of legislation. But even if you didn't want to do it based on,
What do you mean that's the piece of legislation?
well, this is the section and the action to be taken by ordinance or resolution. So, it's 9.01.
in the charter?
It's
This
section.
is where in the charter it says that we can't
It
use a
says it has to
motion.
be taken by ordinance or resolution.
What has to be taken by an ordinance?
Any allocation of, or it says appropriation it says, or levy or tax, I'm sorry, or levy or a tax or appropriating money or contracting the inabatedness to evidence by insurance of bonds or notes. I mean, I can go on the purchase, lease, sale, transfer of real estate property, or to establish an offense or fixing the penalty therefore shall be taken by ordinance or resolution in the manner here thereafter, provided all other action may be by motion. Anything outside of that can be a motion. So there are two things that are the issue with that. So it really, technically, we didn't move it out of budget and finance.
Hang on, we didn't appropriate money.
Yes, we did.
No, we didn't. We authorized the spending of money. That's not an appropriation.
But you identified a line item out of it.
To spend,
Okay,
not
so
to appropriate.
well, we need to appropriate it because
There's already money in that line item.
the money is spent.
But it can come out in the cleanup budget like everything else does.
We need to, I mean,
Am I speaking out of my side of my head? I mean, that we do it every
Yeah.
year.
so we want to put
It's
it in the,
$2,000.
right. So what's the argument in doing it the right way?
I
I'm
get-
not so sure it was done incorrectly. I
So-
guess that's my whole point. That wasn't an appropriation.
Well, and what I'm frustrated about is if this, I'm really thankful that you followed through on this, but I feel like this should have been caught and we shouldn't be at this point to where we're now having to have you spend your time and energy, look into the legal matter of this. That's why we hire a lawyer. So I really appreciate that you looked into this, and I agree, I would like to do it the right way. But I'm not sure. At this point, I'm having a hard time trusting Mr. Dieter's, especially with what you just said with him not even catching it. So, I mean, do we know that we did this the wrong way?
According to this, we did it the wrong way. And we need to pull it out of the appropriate source. And I spoke with Ms. Iki this week in our meeting, and we were able to find the right space to pull it out of. So I would like to go back to Mr. Dieters after tonight with an ordinance or piece of legislation that identifies a way for us to pay for the tree out of the right line item, and we vote on it again. We all unanimously voted yes. No one's not trying to do the Christmas tree. I'm not. It just needs to be done in this format, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Madam Chair, who brought this to your attention that it was done, in their opinion, incorrectly?
It came out from several different directions, but mainly it was the allocation originally. And as I started scratching the surface on the allocation for the money to be taken out of recreation when those funds were already.
I mean, I understand what happened, but who turned you on to the fact that this could have been done wrong?
I don't want to talk about that part of it.
Okay, I'm just wondering what authoritative figure.
You know what, I don't care ultimately, other than the fact that I want to know that the tree is going to get paid for when they start digging it up. That's all I care about.
Fair.
So as long as this isn't going to prohibit that from happening, I don't care.
I would like to see the legislation gotten back to us so that we can put it on the agenda coming up for the third meeting in March.
So I do have another question, though. So when you said it can go into the correct line item, I think I have a question about that, because to me, it's a tree that is recreation, that is for the recreation department to do a tree lighting ceremony. So why wouldn't it come out of recreation?
That's a good question. And the answer that I have for that is there is a budget that we get. I think it's like $1.99 per capita per resident, and it's to the tune of like $19,000 specifically for things like tree planting. And so in my
But where is that?
Yeah. Where do we get that from?
I'm not sure where we got it from, but you can ask administration and they can answer that part of it. But if we're talking about Ms. Clear's budget, where every penny of it is accounted for, and she did give us her budget, and she's been very, very, very diligent about being forthcoming about where her funds are going. If that space is out there, it is a better use of that money for something that we get for tree planting rather than recreation. Although I can understand why you would have said, hey, this is in part recreational due to us it being a Christmas tree and us lighting it for the sake of recreation. But it's a better allocation, in my opinion, to pull it from a bucket where there is resources for tree planting specifically. And then we can also use that same tree planting, the tree that we take from that tree planting budget for recreational purposes.
What bucket is she talking about? I'm sorry, I'm very confused. I didn't know that we had a bucket for tree stuff.
So, excuse me, under the community environment line item, which is 101-449-523-000, we could pay for the tree planting out of that. Other trees in the past have been paid for out of that line item, so it would be consistent with your past purchases. That's why that particular line item was identified.
Okay.
Is that the only other trees that I remember buying is the pawpaw tree? Is that?
Yeah, that came out of,
Okay.
there was an ordinance to pay for the pawpaw trees, and there was a special ordinance that was identified the community environment as being where those trees would come from for the tree board.
Okay.
Can we copy that ordinance that you're referring to and just copy and paste the word, Christmas tree in there?
We wouldn't say Christmas tree, though.
No, Christmas tree. We wanted
Nope.
to come with the lights and the
Nope.
Santa and everything,
Nor
I know, but you know what I'm saying, put the other tree name in there.
But can I just make one other point? And this is not to sound crappy to anyone, but I know it's going to come out that way, so I apologize in advance. But so you stated that Ms. Clear has a very clear, sorry for the play on words, has a very clear budget that she presented to us, and I get it. The other point that I want to make is that we just sat in the recreation meeting, and she pointed out that the Dumley Park budget is more than likely blown out of the water. So granted, she gave to us what she anticipated her budget to be, very precise, but a budget is never precise. Never.
If I may?
Ever.
And I agree.
If I may,
Ever.
Madam Chair, if I
Let
may.
me, I'll let you. I agree that a budget, just a second. I agree that the budget is never precise, but when you're looking at community environment budget, that is a more suitable space to take a tree
I
that
get
we're
it, but
planting.
one of your justifications was because she already had her budget already all lined
Well-
out, and it's
If
just
I
not
may,
real.
If I may, the way I'm looking at it is that budget is my responsibility to manage. And if other people feel that an expenditure is appropriately spent out of my budget, belongs to the city, of course, that a conversation would be had, and we could say, okay, can it come out of here? Maybe it's this bucket, maybe that bucket. Okay, this particular bucket is allocated, and so therefore I'm happy to pay for it out of that bucket, but we are going to have additional appropriations that need to be made, because ultimately I'm the one who's going to have to balance this book at the end of the year. And it would never occur to me to pay for anything that I needed out of Chief Fells's budget or out of the mayor's budget without having a conversation to say, hey, here's what's coming. Does this work for your budget? How can we work this out? That's the issue that I had with it personally. I was completely caught off guard. And I understand that budgets change, but there's a conversation that has to be had. And I think it's just a professional courtesy that if it's someone else's, allocation that was granted to them to manage and be responsible for and to have to account for, and I try to operate with transparency. And if these things are hitting my budget, and I'm like, where did that come from? you know, I'm glad I was at the meeting last week because I heard it, but I would have been like, where did this bill come from? And I would have been going to Kirsten like, wait a minute, why was this paid? I wouldn't have had a clue, right? So just a conversation. If you think that something could potentially be paid for out of recreation, I'm happy to have that conversation, but just, we need to have the conversation. Because I would have said that, especially the specific line item that was mentioned, I don't believe has any dollars in it at all right now. It's a different line item altogether, that supplies and materials. So that's the other issue. You know, it could have made sure it was an accurate, you know, okay, that's cool. We'll write the ordinance, we'll do whatever we need to do, but here's a line item that we have agreed to mutually, you know, as professionals, that's where that needs to go. Like I said, I have no problem with having a conversation about it. I do have a problem when, you know, I mean, I don't think it would have occurred to anybody here to go to the police and say, oh, well, they've got an incidentals budget, we'll just pay for it out of there. You see what I mean?
Exactly.
I just, we need to have a conversation so that it's everybody's knows what's happening and how it needs to take place. That's all I'm.
Madam Chair,
Yes, please.
so I want to be perfectly clear. Again, either change your last name or I'll find another word.
You can call me AC.
So, what we're looking at is to take this from a different line item, and what is the quickest we can get that to council?
My preference and my due diligence is to get that to council and get it on the floor of the ordinance legislation over.
For the next coming council meeting? Which
Yes.
would be great if we could.
Yes.
Okay.
No one's trying to not buy the Christmas tree. We all voted yes.
Yes, exactly.
Santa included, okay?
So, but in lieu of the time,
To that AI, so she can have it written in time for the meeting.
in lieu of the time, can you follow up on the follow-ups for the arborist to tell us about the roots?
There is
And-
no issue with the roots. We
Okay.
talked to them.
Okay. And then did you get the outline of the contract? Because that was also a
Yes.
follow-up.
I gave Ms. Iki a copy of it last week.
Great.
Right
I
after the
wasn't a part
meeting.
of it. I just
Oh,
want
her
to make sure
first
that we.
week here and you
Yeah.
wanted to remember?
And then, did you talk to him about
Yep.
did you also talk to him about the sign and whether it was going to be blocking the sign, like once it grows out and all of that?
It's not going to block, actually, the tree board took a field trip out there. It's not going to block the sign.
Perfect. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I want Ms. Clear to know, I mean, I hear you, and we should have, or I'm going to speak for myself. I should have considered that, and I apologize that I didn't, but I hope that in the future we can consider that as a council and approach it as more of a conversation next time. But thank you for sharing what you've said. I appreciate it.
Okay.
I agree, and I apologize, and it won't happen again. But I, on my own defense, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, so that would be my only excuse, and I apologize.
Okay. That being said, we
I'm
have.
sorry, Ms. Dukes, I have one
Yes.
question. Ms. Zorb, do you have the signed one, or is this us? Is this them or us? The signature's missing.
I'm here.
The
What's it say?
signature's missing on the invoice. Are we supposed to sign that, or is that his signature? Or do you have a signed copy from him?
I don't.
Okay.
I
Can you, if that's his signature, can you just see if you can get one?
think it might be our signature,
Okay.
because we'd be the ones authorizing it, right?
Yeah, that's what I would assume.
We would have to authorize that purchase. He wouldn't.
I'll read it later. But generally, a lot of times they sign something too. It's more like an invoice, but yeah, I'll read it. I think it does say at the top, you as the,
Miss Williams, you got any input here? That, the contract that Sean sent us, do you happen to know if we're supposed to sign that, or if? Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay. So in lieu of that, we need to enter into executive session. So if someone can make a motion to go into executive session, hold on, let me get my pad. For the compensation and salaries for city
Unclassified.
employees.
Unclassified employees, right?
Yes.
Do you need somebody else to make the motion?
I thought somebody besides myself had to do it.
I'll just do it just in case. Oh, sorry, I thought you was gonna say something. I'll motion to enter executive session to discuss the salaries and payment of unclassified city employees.
I'll second.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
conditioner. And, oh, thank you. Yeah, are we back on? Okay, these next two things are like super quick. The air conditioner, Iki, did you talk to Braden and he did not order it?
I vote yes.
It has not been ordered. We have one bid from October, I believe.
Gotta get two
Okay,
more.
but we are, just as a FYI, we're on it. We're trying to get it figured out. And then the digital sign, we were figuring out the line item for that. And I think that there was some emails going back and forth about where that should come from. We had talked about it coming out of mayor's budget. I don't think that should come out of mayor's budget. So can we find a different line item for that?
Council. No,
I'm sorry.
I know, I just was saying council budget.
No. It should probably come out
Then we
of,
get to pick it.
it should probably come out of like
that's on you.
building restoration, or I don't know, something like that, but not,
Take a look.
yeah, not her personal spending budget. And I don't want to get into telling you guys what to do about line items, because you guys are the experts, not me, but that particular one is, just seemed misapplied. Okay, finally, I am so very sorry with the quarterly report and the cleanup. If you would, Mr. Fells, give us your portion to help us understand. Do you want me to plug my computer up to? Okay.
That's, yeah, I was gonna give you the good part of it, and then I was gonna answer your question, other executive session.
Can you go,
Details. The other stuff.
Chief Faust?
And if we can,
Gotta get to the mic.
if we need to have another meeting, just let me know. We'll schedule it.
It won't take that long, I don't think.
Okay.
You had the sheets in front of you.
We're putting on a timer.
Time is it? I will fly.
Pull that mic down.
Well, 30.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Baby, there you go.
Need a nap.
Kirsten, you mind hanging up there just to operate the,
Just one, thank you. I think so.
hit the play, I think it's in the top right-hand corner, just to play the presentation.
To it?
This is short, it's 5 slides.
I'll just scroll.
Can I hold? Sure.
Yeah, it'll blow it up. I don't know how it's gonna look to the public if it's left in this
I
format.
like that.
He's on the slideshow. And then from beginning.
Yay. All right. Next slide. You can go to the next one. That was supposed to hang up there and,
Do you go to the next?
yeah.
Oh, she
you
thought
gotta
it was
hang. You're
Oh,
my
you
clicker.
can do arrows.
I don't have a clicker. So long story short, this is in front of you in the notes page or whatever, but revenues versus expenses. We took in over $8 million in revenue across all the different sources coming in the general fund. Some of those are protected. Police, fire levy, EMS billing, street levy, that kind of stuff. But we only expended out $6.5 million. So we had a pretty good year. Go ahead and fast forward to the next one.
I'm sorry. Can I interrupting so quickly? This is just for fire?
No, this is the entire year for the city. So we took in, what is it, I can't hard to see from here, $8.4 million in revenue.
Can you turn the light off?
Is that, does that include like,
Oh, that's much better.
That's every.
that's all the
Everything.
COVID money, everything?
All the projected funds, all
Okay.
that, levy money from senior center, street levy, fire, police, property taxes, earning tax, everything, 8.4 million. I said 6.5 is what we actually expended. And then Kirsten, if you could go to the next one. So, and that basically is the difference of what we should have been carrying over, revenue versus expenses for '22, to $1.9 million. So, go on to the next one. Now, obviously, a lot of that's tied up in streets, some other things. This was just an overview for you guys to print out of the expenses. The big thing you got to keep in mind with expenses is that all those audit adjustments that we got from the 21 audit had to be made on the expense side. There's some plus, some negative. You'll see them, I believe, well, you can't see them in this particular slide, but you can see them in the detail on one of your sheets where they're bolded. And you can see there's 7 or 8 different audit adjustments. But long story short, if you look at actually the bottom there, you'll see that's where the revenue, the $8.4 million came from. So would it come out to 8.7? There was 270-something thousand dollars worth of adjustments, and that took us down to 8.4. So you can go to the next one. So, and this is basically the fund balances as of December 31st of 22, and this is what's in our system. And I'll talk about this more, hopefully in executive session after this, the next couple slides. But long story short, what our system says versus what Fifth Third says is about $830,000 off. When we started down this road in November, we were millions of dollars off. So we've got it down now to the last 830, but what I'm coming to find out.
Can I ask which way is which?
We need to subtract 830 from our books in-house here at North College Hill to match the bank. We had not been reconciled, it looks like, at least through all of 22. And my guess is, I haven't got access to 21 yet, because I've spent hundreds of hours looking, and I can't find it, is that we carried over and we were out of balance coming into 22. Only because we discovered what was that in October, that the financial reports that the finance office was able to access was pulling from the wrong data server, and it was pulling the year prior's data, and that was being presented to the auditors for their stuff in the system, and just beget more problems. So I can talk more about that, but here's essentially, this is the positive piece. General fund, $2.4 million in that fund. Obviously, that's a revolving account. Money's coming in, money's coming out all the time. The other piece, the fire department. We are carrying a surplus now of $1.2 million since the start of the levy and what we'd amassed before that. This is great news. As you know, our facility is darn near 100 years old. The police department's fallen in. We are now on a trajectory that, and I would say the next 3 to 4 years, we ought to be able to make a substantial push towards a new fire, maybe police station. And need to start thinking bigger picture, what we're doing with this building, that piece of property, instead of piecemealing and Band-Aiding everything. Ryan's got some surpluses coming up. We're applying for more grants. We're going to go out and look for grants for facilities, but I would just caution you before you make any major investments in dilapidated buildings. Never before we come close to having $2 million of surplus. That we need to start thinking bigger picture and start looking.
Senior center? Am I hearing
Those
senior
kind
center?
of, and just keep all this in your mind, that fire, police, this building, that there is the potential. And I just researched, I told the city administrator today, I said the average cost of a new fire station nationwide is $2 to $10 million. So, yeah, if we can get a grant, if we can do some other things, put a hefty down payment on something, we need to start thinking
Yes.
bigger picture. Our buildings, we're running out of space. You know about the police department. It's terrible. You can go ahead and go on to the next one. So appropriations versus expenses, another good place. You guys actually appropriated $10 million and some change worth of expenditures for us to go out and spend. Well, at the end of the year, we only spent 6.5 of that.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with the police and fire department staffing. We just couldn't get people to, to take the positions. We're down 2 full-time spots now. We're going to be down to 3 in another month. And the Cincinnati recruit process starts, I know Ryan's having similar struggles, and that all trickles down across pension payments and health insurance and all those other line items. Start having surpluses. In addition, you guys remember the fire task force thing? We did build in a surplus to buy capital equipment and that kind of stuff, and have matching funds for grants. So we've done all that, and it's sitting there. But yeah, that's the good part. Is like I said, $10 million. You guys gave us the leash to spend. We only spent 6.5 as a city. So all good news. So we're arguing about the 2,000 for the tree. There's plenty of unappropriated money in the general fund to cover those things to be spent. So unless you guys appropriated the entire general fund this year, which I don't think you did. So you can go on to the next one.
Hang on, no, not
Go
yet.
ahead.
So does any COVID money factor into that if we spent COVID money on salaries instead of
It sure
general
does.
fund?
When you look at the surpluses, it sure does. When you were asking, I know we've had conversations, we've asked about where money in surpluses. That's where a lot of the surplus is being built up. Those COVID and CARES Act monies were used directly to pay for salaries, and that freed up all that money to sit there and become capital surplus in the public safety department. It's the 2 biggest buckets.
Okay.
Same with the ambulance. There's $170,000 going to pay off the ambulance. That I was planning on making payments on that ambulance as part of the fire task force. So when that money came in, that freed up all that money. So and that is now also reflected in the surplus. So it's all been of huge net benefit to us. to allow us to do some other things and make some other moves in the future. So I just caution you, like, let's think big picture now, because we're getting there. We're ready, and you know, like I said, we're on a trajectory. And Ryan the same. He's got $1.2 million ARPA money on the table. I got $629,000 over 2 years to cover salaries. So we should have a surplus of between both departments and $2 to $3 million this year and next. So
You want a new
What was
building?
the amount for the police?
1.2 million, I think, is what they were promised.
I thought so.
It's not all salary. Some of it has to do with like wellness, police wellness, things like that they have to expend, but most of it is salaries. So, and like I said, this frees up that line item to be put back and held over and carried over. So you can go on to the next one. So I kind of covered, I guess, the number one big hitter, besides before we get to questions. It came to my attention today, we thought we had Civica, the software we use, till the end of the year. We only have that software till the end of the year if we agree to go to the next product before July. Then they will carry us to the year. If they don't, that software sets off in July. So we have to make a big decision on which way we're going. Some of you have heard my spiel on this, and some of you haven't. Authority is the Civica's new fancy software that replaces Finex. We have a demo of that coming up at the end of this month. I haven't got it scheduled up. It's going to be the last week of March. There's another product that Ms. Iki, I can't remember the name of it again.
Software solutions.
Software Solutions. And then I've seen UAN. I'll give you this. We brought in a gal from Civica, CMI, the software we use now, who's well-versed in all of it. And just some of the pluses and minuses. UAN is a very basic software that the auditor provides at a reasonable cost. That has training modules and all that's very basic. Does not give you near the transparency and the ease of use and reporting that you guys are accustomed to. I will caution you there. The only problem is that all these other pieces of software require like expert level knowledge and somebody that's in it every day. It's just a specialized training. It's very comprehensive, and it's not something you can willy-nilly have people jump in and out of. It comes with some hardware requirements. They're also a little bit more expensive. But we'll let you know, but we got to take action soon. If we're not going to go with the Authority product, we're going to be out of software by July. So
Wasn't there a contract with that?
there is. Yeah, he said, yeah, if you don't sign on to do the new product, they'll hold you till the end of the year. So if we don't go with Authority, we're done in July. We have to go to something else. If we do go with Authority, we have to.
Wasn't there a contract for the already elicited, the one UAN?
For UAN, my understanding there was, but there was no money ever exchanged. There was basically a
But
written
is there-
agreement.
Did you guys do the research?
I have not seen it. I have
Okay,
not seen it.
But have you reached out to them?
I just got the cost. They just gave me, they said it's roughly $4,000 a year to do UAN. So I had that going
I
forward.
just
but-
want to make sure we're not tied to anything
No,
by paper.
Yeah, I think Ryan had talked to them, and they basically said, no, I guess they have some hardware they have to bring down and install. They've expended no money, so at this point, it's no harm, no foul. But it's just a direction of what you guys are gonna be happy with, what finance office and the city administrator and the mayor are gonna be happy with. And hopefully by the end of this month, maybe early next month, we'll have an idea of what direction we wanna go.
Well,
So-
let me know, because some
yeah.
of the trainings that I was going to take.
Yeah. I was gonna say, that's what's so nice about UAN, literally like every piece, because it is a relatively rudimentary software is there, and you could train somebody up. Whereas these other ones are much more comprehensive, but they do a lot, and they have a lot of time-saving stuff with reconciling, like they interact with Fifth Third and some of the various other vendors and bring things in to make, our job more efficient, whereas UAN's not gonna do that. So you gotta look at the pluses and minuses of everything. But
So I have a question. With these other software, the other softwares, all of the information from CMI, is it necessarily going to port over?
only with Authority.
Okay.
With that being
Of the
said.
ones that you've looked into?
Yes. That being said, I'm a little cautious about that. This, like I said, I think with being $800-something thousand out of balance, we don't need to go in executive session unless you guys want to talk in a very, illicit detail about this. But at some point, we're going to have to do much like we did with the audit adjustments, where we're just going to have to write it off, get the books clear. I can't figure out where it is. There's no transaction I can undo, reverse. Can't find it. Once I think you just sent me the 21 stuff. I hadn't had a chance to look at it. My guess is we were out of balance coming into the year. That we just carried over out of balance. We've probably been doing that. You guys know the financial hardships and the turnover in the office. we've probably been out of balance for years, and it's just built upon itself and built upon itself. And at some point, we just got to do a hard reset and set those fund balances in those different accounts at whatever we think our best guess is based on what cash in the bank actually says or has. And I think we're there. So I would caution against maybe importing a bunch of bad data into the system, the numbers that don't match. So I don't know if that would be a deal breaker for you, but
There is a huge question mark in my head, and that question mark says, audit. We've been audited. How in the world did we get through any
Right.
audits for the past however many years and be off $800,000? How does that happen?
I said the same thing. If you were reconciling anything, your own checking account, it would be your checkbook versus what the bank says, right?
Right.
Statement? They never match up. Now, I'm not an auditor, but I know a little bit about my own personal finances. And when the checking account doesn't match the ledger in my little checkbook, you think that would be a big red flag?
Yeah.
Especially for $830,000.
You would think. My guess is I'll probably come back to you next week and tell you that it was never in balance. That the end of the month statement for or January or December 31st of every year never matched what was in our system, ever. And and I think you can tell off some of the email chain from our auditors, either state or the independent one we hired. They basically threw their hands in the air every year and just gave us a bunch of numbers.
Yep.
Well, this sounds like that $84,000. I mean, we've already
Yes.
done this with $84,000.
Amen.
And that was back in what, 2017,
18, something like that,
18?
yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel your pain. I'm just not getting into it.
But there has to,
I've been in it for 3 or 4 months, and it's appalling what I found
Be
and the
some
lack of effort
accountability.
and lack of accountability. And we're paying for this stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So-
saying. We're paying somebody
Correct.
to
Right.
And I can't believe the state lets it
throw
go.
their hands up.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you only need 2 numbers, the checking account number and the end statement that all your accounts add up to. And if they don't match, there's a problem. It's really that basic. There's some outstanding checks that are going, that you've written in late December. We're gonna try to fix that this year. That way, every check is cleared and nothing's outstanding by the time we get to the end of the year, period. We're gonna end the payroll period. Hopefully, payroll 25 is it for this fiscal year. So we can stop it early and everything clears the bank and everything's been transferred and there's not this stuff rolling over into January. So we have a hard number at the end of the year.
Right.
So you guys have accurate stuff. There's nothing outstanding. We can zero out every purchase order. What's in the system should match what's in the checking account, period. And if we adopt that going forward and on a monthly basis, reconcile in the future, once we get our books balanced, it shouldn't be that difficult. The problem is I'm trying to reconcile a full year with problems that carried over from previous years.
What-
And we cleared up millions of dollars of issues, but we got it down to the last 8:30 and I can't find it.
What about the reconciliation statements? We had a council member that always asked for them, and only she got them. And I think it says somewhere in the charter that we're supposed to get one every month.
Yeah. It's impossible to do when you're like,
That's
that's
why
kind of
we
like the
haven't been
cleanup
getting 'em?
ordinance. We have a cleanup ordinance based on what our books say to get them all back in balance, but at the end of the day, they're still going to be $830,000 out of balance.
Crazy.
So it's like we pass it, we can move that money, but it's still not really going to mean much.
And then when is aren't the auditors due here soon? I thought they were due sometime in March. In June. Okay.
Is there any way that, because okay, so you just said the cleanup ordinance. I mean, like, we're passing it, but there are still things you're gonna have to move around, so it's not truly accurate. Is there a way that we can change the charter or change well, I know that there is a way. What do we need to change in the charter? What legislation do we need to change to make it so that we're not held to unattainable standards? Because if we need to make it that the cleanup ordinance is based off of something else, or if,
That should be the standards you are held to. You should have to reconcile monthly. That way you don't have these problems at this magnitude. You should be in the thousands of dollars, not the tens of millions, or tens of thousands, almost a million.
So it's not an issue with the charter, it's an issue with somebody following the charter?
Just, yeah, the turnover in the office, the learning curve, the carrying out of balance from year to year to year, and all the problems and letting them roll forward into the subsequent years
Wow.
has led us to this. And the
So-
audit's not, like, you said it perfectly, I cannot believe, between all the different audits that we've been through, the state, the independent, and none of them.
yeah, I mean,
none of them,
different
the
auditors.
The most basic thing have ever been
Which
able
is
to
why
find
we
that.
initially switched auditors
Correct, yeah, exactly why we did that.
because of the $84,000. I said, nope, we need to find a new auditor. So we switched then.
But
But I
was
mean,
that
what's-
accurate?
and
Was
then-
that $84,000 accurate? Was it really more than that?
Well, what's even more sad is that nobody who worked for our city saw that. I mean, they looks at the numbers every day. I mean, how many
It was
people?
brought to our attention by a temporary finance person that came in. And he said, do you realize there's an $84,000 discrepancy in your budget?
Exactly, but I'm saying this now currently, 2022, 2023, I mean, or 2021, 2022, that our police chief, our fire chief and our police chief had to go in and dig for that. That's,
Yeah. Well,
I
Kirsten as well,
appreciate you
yeah.
guys a lot.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us burnt the midnight oil. And we even brought in an expert, you know, that retired from CMI, a consultant, to help us. But yeah, we
I have a-
literally, that's the best we could do. And I'm just guessing now, I got access to 21. I'm gonna find that whatever that audit was, the starting balance for January of this year was not anywhere near close to what Fifth Third had in
I
cash
have
in the
a
bank.
procedural type question.
Mhm.
Is it possible, is it legal, is it feasible to stop sending out checks or stop doing whatever you do in like December 1? So that everything comes back or what everything is hit the
Yeah,
books?
That's what I talked about, yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of going to payroll 26, which sometimes falls right at the end of January, it's a big mover of money, 115,000 roughly for a 2-week pay cycle is what's moving around between pension payments, insurance. If we stop that and actually end our fiscal year mid-December, we can actually let everything clear the bank, settle with
Exactly.
Fifth Third, get hard numbers and look in the system, make sure we're correct,
But,
at least going
but
into
not
next year.
just payroll. I'm talking
No, I'm just saying that's
paying
the-
a
that-
Home Depot credit
No,
card bill.
Those are easy.
All of those
Yeah,
things.
those are easy ones you can stop early. It's that payroll one that always gets you that you're beholden to. And if we can do that, and then make sure payroll 26 is the first payroll for fiscal year 24, then we'll be all right. We did,
I'm sorry, go
go ahead. No, that's the problem we did this year. Payroll 26 was literally at the end of the month. And then you guys want to clean up ordinance and all these things, while meanwhile, $115,000 is moving around in
Really
the account.
So
And
are you
really
guys
can't.
planning on 2023 doing that? I mean,
That's what, yeah, I talked to Kirsten about it, and as long as Jennifer's on board, yeah, and the mayor, yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that. And all the department expenditures, we ought to be able to get down. And only emergency things only we can do on a credit
have
card,
wiggle
or
room.
we can account for those. Those I can show, you know, there might be 5
Right.
of them. You know, I can figure those out. But when we have, you know, hundreds of transactions moving around at the end of December, it's very hard.
We can take a look, and I've seen other communities do this, where you have a stop date for anything that's being processed. So it's typically a week or two after Thanksgiving, so it's early in December, so that you can get these payments cleared up, everything, so that you have a better idea
Yep.
at the end of the year going into the next year. That is very common. We could put together a calendar that says, this is what it's gonna look like fourth quarter.
And to speak to that, we actually do that at my organization.
We do too. That's why I asked.
And so what that looks like is anything that's reoccurring, you go ahead and account for those and allocate, and then anything extra, there's just a hard no of anything, or it's put in January. Spending resumes at some point, at this point in January. So, super common.
It's just something we got laxed on over the years, and this is, you know,
But part of it, it's bigger than just the spending. It's the budget, the way we've done the budget. I talked to Ms. Iki about just moving the whole calendar further up in the year so that we have a better management of our time. We're not crunched. We're not like meeting extra around the holiday times. It's a completely uncomfortable schedule for anyone that has someone outside of themselves, which is all of us. So.
And just the way the government, you know, closes down certain sectors, you know, now you're crunched December, you only got like a week and a half of real time, you know?
If that sometimes.
Yeah.
yeah. So, long and short, that's it. The papers that are in front of you are just the evidence to support the PowerPoint, is what it is from the system. So I took out any inactive accounts that had no money appropriated or spent, and just gave you there are actually more accounts in this, but yeah, it's rough. There's roughly 3,600 expense transactions, and maybe, you know, at least half of that in revenue transactions coming in and out of the city. And when you know, there's not continuity in the finance office, or a few slips here nor there, you know, and we're not reconciling every month. this is kind of what happens. So,
I mean, I know I don't speak for everybody, but I want to say thank you. I feel like this is really transparent, and I appreciate all the time and effort that you and all the team have put into this.
yeah, well, you're welcome, you're welcome. So, and I'll let you know what the solution is. I imagine we'll meet with the auditors and figure out how we do this correctly. Now that I'm not a CFO, I don't know what the proper procedure is to make an $830,000 adjustment, but we're there. Some of the other things we're talking about we have Fifth Third setting up, we only have really one major checking account, which everything funnels into, which creates a nightmare for Roger, who doesn't have the historical background to know where. I use my EMS billing revenue. I had to go find it across 30 different revenue accounts, because he didn't know where to put it and couldn't remember from one to the next. And it's coming in from 10 different ACHs, different insurers, clearinghouses, things like that. It's a nightmare. But it goes in that one bucket with everything else. If we can break it out and I have the ACH routing and information, I can send it to those clearinghouses. It'll all go there. Same thing for things with Ryan. He's got forfeiture money and things like that that need to go to a certain place, which are also tied to the funds. It'll make that life so much easier. And yeah, there's expense. You know, there might be it might cost us $50 to $100 a month to maintain those accounts because they hold such high balances, but they also pay interest. But it's worth it, because when everything's going into one bucket and there's so many different streams of revenue, it just creates a nightmare of having one person without the historical knowledge and in there all the time to be able to get it to the right spot. So I don't know. Yeah, and then some of the other thing, some other big hitters. We were figured out we were double expensing. We were paying for employee contributions to things on the expense side out of the department line items, but also taking them from the general fund over here. So we had $10 million worth of out of balance expenditures that we had to go figure out what it was. It was mostly tied to double expensing everything, just accounting errors and things like that. But I think we put a 6, where there should have been a 1, and a six-digit figure from a revenue from the earnings tax. So another $500,000 there out of whack. But those kind of things, the little accounting errors, things that should be caught on a monthly basis. It basically yielded the bigger problem that you guys were aware of. And like I said, 830 is about the best I think we can do with what we have. So,
sorry, given all this, will we now be getting, because you're saying monthly reconciliation, which I completely agree. I mean, given what you're saying, I think we definitely need monthly reconciliation. Then we need to change the quarterly reports to monthly reports.
Yeah, but I think we talked about that in our meeting, and for now, I think you do want to keep it at quarterly, or you want to move it to monthly, because you said quarterly, but are you wanting to?
Well, I think
get
we
some
need
time?
to reconcile monthly, but we may report on it quarterly.
Okay.
yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And it will always be, even though we're doing it on that schedule, it'll still be a month in arrears, right? So
Right.
we're going to close March, and you're not going to have it
Until
April
3
1st,
months later,
so,
right.
right.
Yeah. It'll make it, like I said, the new software should make it easier. We'll definitely go into balance into the new software system with correct numbers, and that'll make it so much easier. But yeah, you're trying to reconcile, and you have $830 difference already in the wrong. What does the reconciliation mean?
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, it only matters what Fifth Third says. It doesn't matter what any of our fancy software here says.
Exactly.
That's the cash we actually have. So, the bank doesn't lie. But any questions? All right. That's all I have. You have anything, Kirsten?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do know if you vote on going with the authority, which is CMI's partner, that is real time, so you're not gonna be a month behind. Because that'll just be hosted on the cloud, so we can pull down that information as it happens.
Is there any way that we could get like a quick summary or like a little quick look at what our options are and to be able to quickly compare them?
I don't know, as far as the budget and all that, the cost?
Like the softwares, right?
Yeah.
Actually, the only thing I'd like to see is the report features. I mean, I want them to be able to work in it.
Right,
We
that's
don't have
what
to
I
work
mean.
in
Like,
it. I just
like,
need to see what's the
that's what
work
I mean,
product
like a
that
quick
comes out of
summary
it.
of like what would matter to us. I mean, I don't care about.
You're saying like a compare and contrast of like products?
Yeah.
The pluses
Yes.
and minuses. I will try, that's kind of what we're doing the demos for. The
Okay.
demo for Authority will be the last week of March.
And then obviously, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but obviously we want your guys' opinion since you will be using it the most. So if you guys could give us a recommendation too, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. I think once we take a look at all 3 software options that we're aware of, we
Yeah.
can make a recommendation based on them.
Yeah. And then what it requires of staffing and training to support it. I mean, is it so in-depth and so intense that it requires some kind of expert level knowledge that we can't afford to, we can't afford to pay to people to support it? Then UAN is our default, it's the auditor's checkbook basically, or check ledger. It's very easy, it's very rudimentary. It gets you through the state minimum requirements, but you guys probably aren't gonna be happy with it.
And so, and that's what I was gonna say. When I understood what they were trying to say about the UAN, even just a little excerpts, you go out there, that link I sent you, it actually gives you videos on the difference. It's kind of like, if we have a sophisticated person in-house that can kind of keep and crunch our numbers well, UAN would be a more reasonable product for us to opt for. But if we don't have that and we need a little bit more things in detail, then we need to go opt for one of the more sophisticated services in line. And it's no shot to anyone in administration. It's just really serving our city's needs, what has been in the past, what we've done, because it's also funneling in what we've done in the past and putting it in the nice smooth buckets currently. So that's why it's not a shot to anyone who exists right now. It's just trying to figure out what's going to be the best puzzle for us and putting those pieces together to make a whole.
Yeah, no, well said. I mean, yeah, we'll let you know. I've never seen the one that she's recommending. I've got a little taste of authority just on looking online. Yeah, it's definitely an improvement.
UAN was the better one.
The UAN?
I did, but is that what we need?
It just depends. It's
Right. Right.
it's the low hanging fruit. If
Right.
if we're not gonna have people consist in the office and the staff trained up to operate a piece of fancy software,
It's easier.
it is much easier.
It's
But
easier.
it's very basic. And
We
there's a
don't
lot-
want to go back to, this is just my opinion, I don't work in it every day. All I see is over your shoulder. The Excel sheets, because I hear some of those, that's how they operate still, the Excel sheets and the Word documents. I don't know if we want to do that,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
yeah. I don't know, we'll take a look, we'll get back to you in probably the next 2 or 3 weeks. We had to look at everything. So,
It's much appreciated. Thank you.
No problem. No
Thank
problem.
I'm so sorry about the time, you all. And with that said, we are done. And we officially adjourn at 9:53.